Are you saying you don't think it was suicide?
I think that the evidence points toward homicide rather than suicide.
Why?
Because there are multiple 3 fractures in the hyoid bone, the thyroid cartilage, that are very unusual for suicide and more indicative of strangulation, homicidal strangulation.
Let's take a look at
Homicidal
what the medical examiner...
strangulation. Homicidal strangulation, says this expert, famed medical examiner, is what Fox News said. So this story was on Fox News this morning. I'm going to play you basically a good portion of it so you can see it. It's where the news was made. A few different places are reporting on this news, what this guy said. What's his name? Dr. Michael Baden, forensic pathologist, was on Fox and Friends this morning and said that he thinks, well, he was hired by the brother, first of all, by Epstein's brother, to oversee the autopsy, and he was there. He was the guy monitoring the autopsy when it was happening. And for some reason now, somebody, I don't know, more than a couple months, obviously, later, he's coming out and now saying that he thinks it was homicide, or more likely homicide, or that the evidence points toward homicide, homicidal strangulation, as he says. So, like I said, I'm going to play you a good portion of this segment just so you can hear it from the horse's mouth, as they say. And he goes into a few of the other details, like the fact that both of the guards were sleeping, the fact that all the cameras weren't working, and how it's a highly, highly unusual circumstance. So I'm going to play that. And then in addition, I have some news I went over yesterday on the live show, which was not put on YouTube, but I'll go over it for you guys on YouTube today, which talks about the continuing investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's associates that is apparently still ongoing. So I'm your host, Nathan Stoltman. Behind me is Doshi, who just showed up in time. Right, Doshi? If you want to see shows that don't appear on YouTube and support the Lift the Veil show at the same time and get special surprise content, you can go to lifttheveil411.com. This is a great new way to support the show. It is the only permanent archive for all of Lift the Veil content. It has hundreds of gigabytes of exclusive content at this point. It's where the shows are archived, and you could see yesterday's show, which did not appear in any portion on YouTube, right here. And you can see my open mic last night. I did a comedy open mic last night. We know that I'm interested in telling jokes. Got through 4 minutes. If you want to see that, that is exclusively at lifttheveil411.com. You can click on it, and it'll pull up a sign-up form. Sign up and support the Lift the Veil show and get access to that exclusive content. And as the career progresses, maybe we'll have more of those open mics and stuff put up there for you guys. So that is only for paying customers, though, at lifttheveil411.com. And thanks, everybody, for signing up for that. All right, now I will get into this video. I already played you guys just a little bit. So let's get into the rest of what this guy had to say.
Stated, after careful review of all the investigative information, including complete autopsy findings, the determination on the death of Epstein is below. Cause, hanging, manner, suicide. You say that his fatal injuries are consistent with homicide?
More consistent with homicide. And in fact, at the time of the autopsy, the doctor doing the autopsy didn't think there was enough information to say suicide, so she put it pending further study. And then for some reason, and they want to know, the family wants to know, why was it changed from pending further study to homicide afterwards?
So if you're there watching them perform this autopsy, you notice these 3 broken bones, and you believe it would be homicide. So that would mean another person would have gone into his cell, strangled him. Did he have any signs of trying to fight back?
Well, they took fingernail clippings to see if there's anybody else's DNA on it, and that hasn't been released. Neither has the information about whose DNA is on the ligature. A ligature was made out of torn strips of orange sheets, and whoever made it had to have a lot of DNA on it, and the brother's been asking that from day one.
Okay, so again, it could be biased, right? People are going to suggest that it's biased because he's hired by a member of the family, Epstein's brother, to do this. But he does have some background. He was formerly, he did formerly work for the state or for the city of New York as a medical examiner, and he goes into that in detail. And he was tasked specifically with investigating deaths in custody, deaths in prisons, and has an extensive history in doing so. I'll tell you, I still am very suspicious that Jeffrey Epstein is deceased, but I do tend to think somebody was deceased, and I tend to think that they might have been the victims of homicidal strangulation, as he said, based on the evidence they presented so far. He said, you know, it was weird. The findings came out, and they said not enough evidence, pending more evidence, right, to determine the manner of death. And then without any explanation, they decided to say, with no details, manner of death, strangulation by suicide. So, and I'll read you what the medical examiner for the state is saying in response to this guy's appearance on Fox News.
You're saying that whoever made it has to have a lot of DNA on it, and there was?
No,
none at all.
We don't even know if it was examined.
Could they? Right. So you're saying when you left the examination room, they weren't sure what happened.
That's right.
So what? You know this procedure. What happened in the interim to get this?
Somebody in the comments, Mark Boggs, says he was on, or somebody else actually said he worked on the OJ trial. I believe that's a fact, that this guy also worked on the OJ trial. I have some stories about that too. Could tell you what Nicole Brown is up to these days. Anyway, that's another conspiracy theory for the after show.
It's such a blunt conclusion.
Well, a week later, it was changed to homicide. The brother wants to know, what did they get new in that week to make it homicide?
What's your answer to that?
We
Suicide.
don't know. We don't know.
Suicide.
It's 80 days now.
Right.
And the brother feels he's getting a runaround. And to add to it, there was a total breakdown in security. The video cameras didn't work. The guards went to sleep.
What about that guy who was in the cell with him earlier, where it was suggested that guy tried to kill him?
Well, he had a new roommate now because of a suicide watch, a different roommate. But that roommate was pulled away the day or two before, so that there was no roommate with him, no suicide watch.
I would have done a better job with the lapel mic if I had been producing this episode. Every time he moves his arms around, he got the bad production. Fascinating video, though. What are people going to say?
No security guards, no videotapes that were working. Was the FBI able to get some information from the videos?
I know that you were hired back in the 70s to do this as your job. You really investigated deaths in prisons after the big riot and all these prisoners died. So in your experience, what are the chances of him not being checked on for 3 hours from 3:30 to 6:30 when they found his body, and the 2 prison guards falling asleep?
Extremely unlikely. I've never seen it in 50 years of investigating all deaths that occur in prisons in New York State. Never had 2 guards fall asleep at the same time. All the video doesn't work. And the issue would be, did somebody come in and cause his death?
Well, what about...
All right, so that's what I'm going to play from this video. You can find it yourself on Fox News. You can just look up Fox News Epstein and look for the last day, and you'll see this story. It's about a 10-minute interview they have with them, and then there are articles written about it, including this article from the New York Times, which says Epstein's autopsy points to homicide. It's literally a quote from the interview I just played. Everybody's asking, what is this a distraction from? That's what people are asking. What is this a distraction from? I don't know. It is 80 days later. That's what he said, 80 days later. Why didn't it come out sooner? Judge Napolitano on a separate show was asking that question. Why are we hearing about it now? People are always thinking that everything's organized and orchestrated. I don't know. You know, I like to have evidence that it was. This guy says that if, the reason it's important, obviously, is that if he was killed, then other people are in danger as well, including possibly Epstein's brother himself could be in danger if his brother was killed in prison. So this is from the New York Times story. They actually have a quote from the medical examiner who made the examination, Dr. Barbara Sampson, who had ruled on August 10th that it was a suicide. She says, quote, "I stand firmly behind our determination of the cause and manner of death in this case. In general, fractures of the hyoid bone and the cartilage can be seen in suicides and homicides." And then there are other people quoted in this article that say it's not a slam dunk. While that is what you hear, is that it's not impossible that he would have the damage that he had, the multiple fractures of the hyoid bone or whatever it was, in a suicide. That it's not impossible to have it in a suicide. Might not even be 90%, one of these people says. They talk about conspiracy theories here. I'm going to talk a little bit more about conspiracy theories. One conspiracy theory that I've gone into before when we were looking into the Epstein thing is on 4chan. On 4chan, there were some things announced before it was news. One was that Epstein was dead, and one was that Epstein might have been switched out. Before any news came out on 4chan, somebody said Epstein might have been switched out, that there was a truck that pulled up, somebody left, somebody came in a wheelchair. So is it possible? And for sure, 100%, the person on the stretcher was not Jeffrey Epstein. We were able to identify that by looking at his ear and other factors. You know, he was clean shaven, and there were a number of things about the person photographed in the stretcher that were not consistent with Jeffrey Epstein and would lead one to the inescapable conclusion that it's a different person. So we can say with certainty that it was a different person in that stretcher, you know, based on the evidence we saw. So that is something. And combined with the, evidence from 4chan, you might think, well, and then the cameras being turned off, the guards supposedly falling asleep, maybe they killed somebody who wasn't Jeffrey Epstein, who looked just like him. It's possible. I tend to think he's still alive based on the fact that they used a body double. I tend to think that he's still alive because otherwise, why would they have used a body double? And then the autopsy could just be on this guy, this lookalike, who they took out. But I don't know. I don't know for sure. That is the far end of the conspiracy theories. I do have good news, though, for people who are wondering, because there is no justice with Epstein supposedly dying in jail or supposedly committing suicide in jail, or even if he was murdered. There is no justice until some of these people are prosecuted. And there are people who are completely complicit with Epstein's crimes based on any number of victims, right? Including Ghislaine Maxwell and the modeling agent he worked with, the French guy, who apparently are both in South America right now. Ghislaine and Jean-Luc Brunel, I think it is, right? Jean-Luc Brunel. So here's an exclusive, or what we're told is an exclusive article from the Daily Beast from yesterday. Federal prosecutors are lining up witnesses against Jeffrey Epstein's cronies. Let's see, this is good news. Federal prosecutors are lining up witnesses against Jeffrey Epstein's cronies It says numerous Epstein victims have met with prosecutors in recent days. So let's see. This is an exclusive, like they say. The article says, it's been more than 2 months since Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, but the investigation into possible accomplices is still very much alive. In recent days, federal prosecutors probing the financier's sex trafficking ring have been asking Epstein victims if they could serve as witnesses in the criminal case they are building. 2 people familiar with the investigation said the prosecutors have heard from dozens of witnesses or victims since Epstein's arrest. And then you have an attorney for 2 of Epstein's victims in Florida, Palm Beach attorney, who reported to the Daily Beast about what was going on. He said not only were they meeting with victims and offering them counseling services, but the representatives also worked to debunk conspiracy theories, which the victims have encountered online related to Epstein's jailhouse suicide. According to this attorney, prosecutors continue to battle wild speculation on how the 66-year-old money manager died, along with rumors that he isn't dead at all. Well, I hope they don't watch this show, because then they're going to get thrown all over the place. They're going to think, what? Wasn't the same person? He's alive in Israel? What are you talking about? And then they might believe it. So this guy said, quote, the U.S. Attorney's Office wanted to put to rest some of those conspiracy theories that he was killed, that he's still alive. There are people still talking about that. There are still people that think this was an absolute ruse and he's sitting pretty in another part of the world, unquote, Israel, unquote. He didn't say Israel, but that's what he was thinking. Quote, they wanted to meet with some of the victims to discuss whether or not there could be potential witnesses in that ongoing investigation. So you guys decide. People say it's what it's a distraction from. I guess we can talk about that a little bit more in the after show. That's the update for YouTube. Just a reminder, everybody, in addition to the website where I do have that exclusive content I told you about, we are still having a moving sale. We are moving. This show will be moving out of this garage. And we're also doing some new stuff with the shop. So in the meantime, get what you can. I mean, we actually are selling out of shirts. From what my wife told me, we have 1 Russian bot shirt left. The original shirt, and we're never going to order any more. Not like these. Not with what we have planned. So actually, this stuff is limited edition, prices never seen before, and selling out. So get it while you can at truthclothing.io. That's our other business, Truth Revolution Clothing. You can go to sale and then moving sale, and then we still have full price items too. Our newest shirts, the moon landing Kubrick inspired shirt and our propaganda tee, along with the t-shirt I'm wearing today, our TR logo tee. Check all that out, truthclothing.io. Buy it before it sells out, and we appreciate your support. I really do. I really do appreciate everybody's support. So I'm going to tune over now. I'm going to end the stream here on YouTube, which is what happens. One portion of the show is here, and I'm going to tune over to DLive, dlive.tv/lifttheveil. You can download the DLive app, look for Lift the Veil, and tune in there. And we'll go over the rest of the news, including the new documents released by the FBI about the Finders cult. I want to go into that a little bit more in the after show. So that's it for now for you guys. So for YouTube, for me and Doshi, that's what it is.